Thanks for joining us. I'm actually crazy excited about this because I talked with Alex, and my mind was really blown. I thought I knew a lot about nanny taxes from talking with the other major people in the space in the industry. Um, and I was really, really surprised at some of the things that he had told me about it. And it was at that point a crazy no-brainer that we had to invite him here to share all of his ideas, wisdom, some of the maybe won't we won't get into it, but horror stories about how this all works and what you really do need to know as an agency owner. So, uh, Alex, thank you so much for joining us. I'm going to pass it over to you to walk us through this.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you, Danny. So before I jump in, just want to do a very quick and short introduction about myself. So my name is Alex. I am based in Seattle, Washington. I built NannyKeeper mostly because I had to navigate this for myself, and I realized, wow, this is a lot more expensive and a lot more complicated than it had to be. I have two twin girls. They just turned 2 years old a couple months ago. And a few months back, or not a few months, more like a year back, we had a babysitter and we were trying to pay her. And, uh, and she was like, "Oh yeah, and by the way, can you send me, my tax forms?" And I was like, "Oh geez, I don't have tax forms for you, but let me see what I can do." And then I researched a few of the existing payroll providers for household employers, and then I realized, wow, like it's kind of crazy expensive for what they do. After educating myself a lot more than I originally wanted to, I realized, hey, I don't actually think it needs to be that expensive. And I think it's something that every single family that hires a caregiver should be able to access. And a few months later, NannyKeeper was born. So that's kind of a very short story about how NannyKeeper came to be. Um, So, what exactly is NannyKeeper, and why is it relevant? Um, NannyKeeper exists primarily because in the U.S., the IRS has a special carve out for household employers. So anyone that employs someone who works inside of their house, who gives directions of what they should do inside of the house, they basically qualify as a household employer, and they are therefore subject to various special rules. Some of the rules make it easier, some of the rules are extra rules that you need to abide by. But basically, it just means that when you pay those people that come and work in your household, you need to generate some tax forms for them. What NannyKeeper, what we try to do is we try to make this as easy and as brainless as possible. As a family, basically all that you want to do is you want to say, hey, I hired so and so for so and so a number of hours or over the course of X amount of days. And this is how much I paid them. Tell me how much I need to pay in taxes and just make the forms for me. And that's at the core, that's what NannyKeeper does. We support all 50 states. We support federal. We support individual state level tax forms. And depending on where you are and which state you live in, you may be subject to a bunch of municipal level taxes and forms as well. And we handle all of those for you as well. And of course, one of the most valuable things that all of our customers tell us is that we have excellent customer support. I try to personally handle as many support questions and cases as we can, and we generally try to turn them around within a few hours. We try to hold a really, really high bar there. Um, let me move on to the next slide. So a lot of you may already know this, but generally, who needs to run household payroll, and why are they different from, let's say, a standard non-household payroll provider, like, for instance, Gusto? It's the IRS really defines it as three main criteria. One is the work needs to happen, of course, at home, and two is the family needs to decide what work is done and how. Um, those are the two biggest parts of the criteria. And then there's also some additional criteria at the federal level, where if you pay them over $3,000 per employee or over $1,000 in the quarter, all of a sudden that means you need to withhold various taxes. But generally, if both one and two are true, then you probably need to do household payroll. Um, And the thing about doing payroll, and I actually get this question a lot, both from agencies that I talk to, as well as families and caregivers that I talk to, is like, why do we need to even bother? Like, what's the benefit of doing this versus, just paying cash under the table? And I think a lot of folks don't realize is that it's not just taxes that you got to pay, which of course no one wants to pay more in taxes, but you also get benefits in exchange for paying some of these taxes. So the probably the obvious one is, hey, these taxes directly go and cover things like retirement, disability, Medicare. Those are great benefits that the government provides in exchange for paying your federal taxes. And you get those benefits back, and especially building Social Security work history. That's important. But I think a lot of people don't may not realize that, especially depending on which state you live in, California, New York, Washington. There's a long list of states. They actually all have a whole bunch of additional benefits as well. For instance, you may get disability leave, you may get workers' comp, you may get uh, additional time off protections. All of those are materially pretty valuable. And then the last thing is that, oh, sorry, I think someone might be unmuted.
Oh, yes, I got you.
Okay. And then I think the last thing that is also important is that a lot of caregivers, they may not be planning to become a caregiver for their entire careers. This may just be a portion of their time or summer or some limited duration. And so having a W-2 record actually establishes um, wage eligibility if the job ends. So it establishes a working history, it establishes a documented working history, which is important, especially if you're applying for another job or if you're applying for a place to live or whatnot, and they do background checks. But it also establishes a series of unemployment protections as well. So those are all very important and valuable benefits that someone may get by being paid over the table. And of course, not said here, but being compliant with the IRS is always a good thing. You don't want to get audited later on and have to deal with, the headache of trying to, make up for this time. Um, and the other thing that makes NannyKeeper different from other payroll providers is that we don't file the taxes for you. And we actually think that's actually a good thing, because every single person and every single family's taxes are very different. And filing taxes on behalf of a family just because you are doing their nanny taxes, that's just a very tiny slice of a family's tax picture. And what we've seen is that it is oftentimes not worth the trade-off. So as a result of us not filing taxes for you, what we do instead is we do arm families with everything that they need so that they have full transparency and full control over their own taxes. So we provide all of the forms that they need, the W-2s, the Schedule H's, the pay stubs, even some of the local forms. We provide all of that. And we also clearly show them exactly how all of the calculations come about. And specifically, what we don't ask for is we don't ask for a power of attorney. Um, and we don't ask for your previous tax return records. And I think this is also a really good way for us to kind of keep costs under control as well, is because we're not actually trying to become your representative in front of the IRS. We're not trying to, really, do a job where we may not know the full picture. One of the things that I didn't realize when I started this journey, but what I've heard from a lot of our customers is that a lot of full service providers, they do a good job, and the family is all happy with everything. But then many months or sometimes even years later, they realize that things were actually not filed properly. We have literal support cases where deadlines were missed, and because these full service providers represented the customer actually didn't even know the deadline was missed, and so they didn't know they were subject to fees or additional withholding or other penalties until the IRS came knocking at their door later. And then when that happened, of course, those full service companies, they're actually not liable. It is still the customer that is liable for those issues. And so they had to address that. The other case that I've seen often in support cases of people that move over for us is that their numbers were just filed totally wrong. Their withholdings numbers were wrong. They were missing pay periods. And again, like when those um, tax forms get transmitted, you kind of really want to get them right on the first time because if you get them wrong, trying to correct that mistake, well, no, well, first before you correct it, trying to discover that mistake is really, really hard, right? Like, no, trying to find a mistake after you file taxes, that's hard. But even assuming you discover the mistake, trying to correct that mistake with the IRS is also really, really difficult. There's a lot of correction forms you got to file and the IRS may assess additional penalties for you. There's various deadlines. It's just a really, really big headache. And what makes it worse is that if you don't own your own tax forms, a lot of these errors and mistakes, they're actually not known to you until you actually get a letter from the IRS or until your local municipality sends you a letter saying you owe something. So we kind of sidestep that entirely, and we say, hey, you know what? You as the family, you as the nanny, you know your own taxes better than anyone. So we will arm you with everything that you need. If you use TurboTax or CPA, just give these forms to them and they will handle it. Or if you DIY and handle it directly yourself, then great. You attach this to your 1040 that you're going to file anyways, and then you should be good. And the the other benefit of this is this allows us to keep our costs really down. It's we only charge $10 a month. That's pretty much the absolute cheapest that we can get it to, and I think that's a very fair price given the type of value that we can provide. Um, so how exactly does a family using NannyKeeper actually onboard? It's quite simple, and there's really only one or two things that they need to do. The first step is the family signs up for NannyKeeper and they invite their caregiver. And all that requires is basically an email address. And once they invite their caregiver, we will send them an email. We automatically have a secure form that collects their social security number, their address, their W-4 elections, all of that. So that's all handled by our system. The family never has to think about it. And then the family just sets up their payroll. They say, okay, how often do I pay my caregiver? Are they salaried or are they hourly? And what are the hours that they work every single pay period? So if I pay twice a month, then twice a month I would go in and say, yep, for the past 2 weeks, here's how many hours they worked. Run the payroll. That's it. We will automatically calculate all of the deductions, all of the taxes, withholdings, all of that, and we give you a final number that you need to pay your caregiver with. Um, if you want to use a direct deposit, we actually have a direct deposit system. You just link your bank, your caregiver links their bank, and all of that money will then get debited from your account automatically, and we'll send it over to your caregiver automatically. So as smooth and as painless as we can get it. And then at year end, we automatically generate all of your tax forms. So your W-2s, your Schedule H's, all of your tax records, all of everything that you need to actually file. Our pricing is pretty simple. We really just have two plans. Our starter plan, $10 a month. This is great for any family that has one caregiver working for them. If you have more, you can upgrade to our Plus plan with up to 5 employees. Um, if you want to dip your toes in the water and just start tracking hours, that's free. That's free forever. That's our free forever plan. And then if you are a multi-employer payroll agency, or if you are a developer, or if you just have a lot of household employees, we have our Pro plan. Although most people, between starter and plus, that's more than sufficient for what they need. And if we also have a discount if you pay annually, so it's just $100 or $180, which I think is a very, very fair price. That puts us roughly at around 70 to 80% cheaper than most competitors in the space. And then finally, for everyone that's here today or watching this, we have a QR code to scan that gives you 10% off uh, our already fairly reasonable prices. And then if you're an agency and you would like to partner with us, we do have a whole bunch of partnership options. We can do white labeling. We have, depending on your volume, we can do a revenue share agreement. We have a contract builder as well to get a actual wet ink e-signature contract between families and nannies. If you ever want to white label that with us, there's a lot of opportunities there. So feel free to reach out afterwards if that sounds interesting to you. And I think, Danny, we will be sharing this deck. So we do also have additional free resources as well. We have a free tax calculator for anyone that wants to just very quickly get an idea of how much they owe. And we also have a very, very in-depth resource guide that covers every single state, all of the municipal filings, all of the state filings, all of pretty much everything you need to know to become a super expert in this space. And that's available on our website as well. Um, with that, I think that's all I had today. If anyone has any questions, comments, anything else that you guys would love to talk about, happy to discuss.
Alex, that was really great. And thanks again for like sharing all of this. I actually do have some questions for you. Um, my first question really was based on what you said about like the full service providers versus like how this works. It had me thinking like, do like families that often do like full service providing like work with that style also like do TurboTax like at the same time and then like kind of like records kind of get like how does that work? I've never been in that spot and I'm thinking now that that's probably one of those big like problems.
Yeah, exactly. And that's kind of the entire thesis between why we are not full service, right? Because the second you file ta and actually transmit and file your taxes, um, that's a significant event. The IRS gets your tax forms, right? And the thing about, TurboTax, or even if you go and work with your local CPA, is now when you file the rest of your taxes with them, they actually have no idea what was actually transmitted on your behalf by these full service providers. And so therefore, if, depending on your tax situation, if you're trying to take additional deductions or if you have, complicated tax situations or tax credits, like that's completely like you just don't know what that part is because you don't see what they filed, right? You don't know. Um, with NannyKeeper, what we do is we literally give you the Schedule H. And so you go to TurboTax and you can just click upload your Schedule H, and now TurboTax knows about it. And therefore it can make all of the right calculations and flow all of the right numbers from all of the rest of your tax picture, right? So that when you transmit your taxes, it's just one transmission all at once with everything. And so you can feel confident that the numbers are right. And the bit bonus is that, if you pay for some of the additional TurboTax plans, like because TurboTax transmitted it for you, you get their protections as well, their audit protection. So um,
Oh.
that's kind of a key distinction here.
Wow. Thanks for sharing that, especially that last part too about like when you file with like something like TurboTax that you can often pay for like $80 more. They'll be like, if you get audited, we'll be there with you.
Correct.
Um, Angela posted, she said, I didn't know TurboTax does taxes for employees. Uh, could you just elaborate on that? I I think it's that we can put in our Schedule H form, but it won't actually
Yeah.
do it for employees. It'll just do ours and then they do theirs.
Correct. So your household your employee, like your nanny or caregiver, they still need to do their taxes, right? And but what you do is you issue them a W-2 just like any other employer, and they do their taxes. And specifically, it is not possible to do someone else's taxes, right? Because you don't know, if they have other jobs, if they have other W-2s, you don't know if they have like, you don't know 99% of what their tax situation is. But for yourself, right, when you do your own taxes, TurboTax can handle it for you. I think you need to upgrade to you can't use their free tier. I think they have a paid plan that supports Schedule H's. So you just upload your Schedule H and then you can transmit it that way. Um, and then for the nannies that get their W-2s, they use, it's just like doing taxes, however, right? If it's their only job, then they likely qualify for TurboTax's free plan. They just scan the W-2. The W-2 that we issue is an official IRS spec W-2. So it is parsable and understandable by TurboTax, and all of the other tax software is completely up to the IRS specifications. So they just enter that however using whatever tool they're using, or if they're giving it to a CPA, they can do that, and they just file their taxes that way. Did that answer your question, Angela? Okay.
Perfect. She says yes. Um, if anybody else has any questions, they're more than welcome to ask. Um, I was wondering, it's just at the end of the year, really, that like taxes you file, like families don't have to do like anything like quarterly or any, we don't get into that, or do we?
Um, Unfortunately, you do,
Oh,
but and the answer is it depends. So, depending on where you live, so federal, most families are fine just filing, year-end W-2 Schedule H. That's totally fine. And unless you're paying, a lot of money, you probably don't meet the quarterly estimated payments requirements for federal. So you're totally fine. But lots of states and municipalities require quarterly filings. And so once you actually sign up for NannyKeeper, we'll ask you for what state and your zip code, and from there we'll figure out what actual state level and municipality level obligations that you have, and then we will show you exactly what your upcoming payments and when they are due. Some states have state level unemployment, insurance that needs to be collected. New York, for instance, is one of our more complicated. New York and California are both a little bit complicated. New York requires you to purchase additional unemployment insurance through a third party, and that third party may bill you on whatever billing date that they decide. So it can potentially get a little bit complicated. And so, but we are aware of all that complexity, so we navigate it on behalf for you, and we just tell you exactly it's kind of like following a GPS. Hey, like exactly what you need to do next, and roughly how much it's going to be, and what the instructions are, and then you can just go off and click the link and then pay it.
fantastic. And I just want to hit this home because it was the most jarring thing to me when we talked originally, and you mentioned it again here, that in other situations that or like a full service provider, you are giving them power of attorney. What does that really mean?
I mean, like, you know, what does it take for someone to file taxes on behalf of you, right? Like, you need to grant them the ability, like, that's really what you're granting them. You're granting them the ability to go off and look at your historical tax returns and file taxes on behalf of you. And that's a pretty sweeping power to grant someone, whom really all you're doing is potentially having them, pay taxes on, a few $1,000s worth of dollars over the course of the year, right? Like, you know, you probably pay more money to your car insurance and your rent or mortgage, right? And you don't grant people power of attorney, you don't grant people access to all of your IRS forms, right? And so it I don't know, it's a personal decision. For me, I thought that that was a little bit too invasive and a little bit too much.
You also have, and I'm sorry that I'm almost turning this into like a two-way conversation. So definitely anyone else speak up, but you have like a background in tech. So I'm wondering, is this like you do you have to be savvy to do this stuff like with NannyKeeper? Like, is there any savviness about it? Or because I think that that's why people would go, I need something full service. I don't want to ever think about this. It's too hard. Taxes are scary. And I'm just wondering, is it like how capable do I have to be to do this with NannyKeeper?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't think you need to be tech savvy at all. I come from a tech background, and that has allowed me to build and make NannyKeeper. But the way, my goal is to make that as easy to use as possible so that a everyday, average person can be successful. Now, navigating, the United States tax system, of course, is never simple. But if you are able to file taxes each year, or if you are able to hire a CPA and to do your taxes, then you are fully able to be successful with NannyKeeper. And that's kind of the bar that we're trying to hit here.
Amazing. Thank you. Yeah, it I I really appreciate you sharing your time and sharing all of this information with us when we talked. And the reason that I think that this is so important is that I didn't realize that this was that great in between option of like it just seems like it makes a lot of sense. And I think when agencies are speaking with families, they've been steering them in the only direction that really like is pervasive in the industry. And I think that this is like a really great option that should be shared more widely and known about. So I really appreciate sharing all of this with us. It's really helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, of course, happy to be here. Yeah, I mean, like, I think $10 a month is very reasonable. We don't make you sign a contract. If you want to cancel or downgrade your plan at any time, you can do so. No obligations. You can just walk away. So I think it's a very low risk thing for families if they wish to try it out. And if they ever find that, hey, they actually do want a full service agency, they have all of our data and forms are right there so that they can then download and then send and share with their full service agency or their CPAs at any time. So I think I do agree. Like I think that the industry desperately needs something that is just very, very easy, low friction, that it doesn't require kind of handing over a lot of things during a formal onboarding process to do something that, really people already don't have time for anyways. So, yeah, thank you for the opportunity here, Danny. I really appreciate it. It was cool to talk and share this with everyone.
Yeah, thank you. And I suppose just before we wrap up, does anybody else have any questions for Alex? Um, yeah, I think this is just really your opportunity to, I guess, in front of some other people, ask any of those questions that you really might want some answers to. Otherwise, you'll easily be able to go to nannykeeper.com, scan this QR code. And is there any other places that people can go to connect with you, Alex?
Yeah, if you would like to reach out, my email is alex@nannykeeper.com. If you like to partnership with us, and we can exchange links. We have dedicated state guides for every single state. So if you would like to show up in one of our state guides, I'm more than happy to place your agency's logo there and a link to your site. Um, if you want to have your own partner code where you can give to your families, and the promo code is whatever you want it to be, and instead of engine hire, we can certainly make that happen as well. Lots of ways to partnership. We're totally open, so feel free to reach out. And you can also find my contact info on our website as well.
And I just wanted to ask you again to share some of your like your white labeling options for people that came in later, because I actually think that that's actually also really interesting and cool.
Yeah. I think there's a few notable, high visibility places. Of course, we're flexible, so we can always come up and brainstorm some ideas. But number one is we have a free contract builder between families and caregivers to build out a contract, and then we also support wet ink and e-sign over that contract as well. So if you want to have your logo placed in that flow or on that contract, we can certainly talk about that. Um, every single time a caregiver is paid, we generate a pay stub for them. It's a very official looking pay stub with all of the tax numbers, deductions, etc. We can place your agency's logo there as well. If you want to formalize that relationship with the provider, you know, things like that. I think we can definitely make that happen. If you refer a family and you would like them to sign up for NannyKeeper and see your agency's logo inside of the NannyKeeper app experience as well, we can also talk about how to make that happen. So there's lots of opportunities here.
Wow, that's awesome. Especially like that last piece of like making it really sticky for people to remember it, that it was your agency that helped them out here.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, especially from an agency perspective, it's a really good opportunity because a lot of, when you think about the life cycle of a caregiver with an agency, right? It's very, very high touch at the time leading up to placements. And then post placements, it's kind of radio silence until the next placement happens. But with payroll, it's high touch throughout exactly those blind spots, right? Because they come back every week, every 2 weeks, to run payroll and to receive their payroll and especially if for nannies that are tracking their hours via our free hours tracker in our caregiver dashboard, they'll be back multiple times a week. So it's a really good opportunity to show off your brand and remind them that hey, next time you're looking for another placement, this is where you can go.
Great. Thank you, Alex. Thank you just so much for doing this. I will take the recording of this, I will put it into a web page, and then I will email it to everyone that joined and RSVP. And then everybody, as usual, can always just go on our website and find all of the recordings of all of our webinars. Alex, one last time, thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for having me, Danny, and thank you, everyone. Take care.